My sister-in-law ruined her marriage after I saved it. The doorbell rang and my wife, who was already up, went to open the door. As I waited, I sat and recalled the trials and tribulations of our life together. A memory of a Friday night. The doorbell rang. My wife went to the door, then went upstairs to the bedroom and came back downstairs. It was Brittany. She had brought the earrings I would be wearing tonight. She went into the kitchen to check on things, and I headed out on the cold patio to our grill. Damn, I hate winter, but grilled steak is worth the pain. 5 minutes later, I was sitting with my wife while she ate a quick dinner dressed in her robe, the bare hollow between her breasts, teasing me and letting me know she had nothing on underneath. I wasn't going to be having sex anytime soon, and dinner was a little awkward and clumsy. Her sister was getting married next week, and the bachelorette party was tonight at Male Delivery, a male dance club for fat men. Just what I needed, for my wife to watch exuberant men dance. I wasn't fat, but I wasn't a pumped-up buffer with a six-toed torso either. Besides, my dancing was more like a fit than a dance. The naked part of me had been put up with. I was well aware that I was well above average in looks, but the Male Delivery guys were 1 or 2% taller. Oh, right. Hi, I'm Tom Hanks. No, I'm not that famous guy, and I'm not related to him. My wife is Danielle, and we met sophomore year of college. I won't bore you with the details of each of our dates, but I can briefly tell you that we met in college, became close, and the love chemistry was very strong. We dated, couldn't get enough of each other, had sex like rabbits, ended up making love like rabbits, and finally got married the summer after she graduated from college a year later than me. I'm 26 and she's 25. She's a solid 8 out of 10. I work as a civil engineer for Anderson-Womelsdorf Construction, doing mostly surveying and project management. I make a decent amount of money, enough to be among the top 15% of men with the highest income. Life, as I call it, is good enough, and we have a nice medium-sized 3-bedroom ranch in the suburbs, good enough that we won't need private schools when we have kids. Our cars are new, and we have enough money in the bank that I stay up every night worrying. 3 years into our marriage, sex was still 4 or 5 nights a week, but not because either of us was insatiable. Some nights the sex was just coupling, that is, connecting our bodies and maximizing intimacy. We both seemed to enjoy that variety. How I hated the thought of her going to one of those dance club parties. Unfortunately, 2 months earlier, my stupid brother had picked a club called Goldie Locks, and the 3 mayors for my other brother's bachelor party, and yes, I went. I was the best man, and they all contributed money for a 5-minute lavish lap dance with breasts on my lap. Yes, I told my wife Danielle all about it when she asked me what happened when I got home. We have a truth rule, and I wasn't about to break it when I hadn't done anything wrong. I told her that I kept my hands strictly at my sides, and no, I didn't do the accidentally licked my breasts, tongue sticking out, when the dancer shook her breasts in front of my face. I had a strong urge to cheat on my wife, but I avoided it. I love my wife. On the night of the bachelor party, I got home alone without 20 minutes to spare, slightly over the legal driving limit, but an Uber drove me there and back. I was tipsy, but not drunk, as I wanted to make sure I maintained enough self-control to not end up like some idiot from an internet story who ends up getting divorced, or the wife leaving and getting revenge on herself. She looked at me after my story about the bachelor party, thought for a second, then sighed and nodded. Things were a little cold, but by the next day she had come to terms with it. When I returned to the house after mowing the lawn, I saw my wife standing without her clothes on, reaching out to me with a wide smile. She came over and kissed me and then said, "I won't have sex with you while you're sweaty. Let's go wash you off." It was a lot of fun in the shower. She thoroughly washed me from head to toe and then invited me to wash her body. Lots of kissing and touching, which eventually led to her having sex right in the shower. Afterward, she confessed that she had called the other wives and girlfriends of the men at the bachelor party and found out that I was indeed a good boy, keeping my arms strictly at my sides during the entire lap dance. Yes, my brother called me an asshole after I sat there without trying to grope or kiss my breasts. She looked at me and said, "Yes." I called and asked what happened, and it turns out you were a very good boy, and your brother teased you for your passivity. Thank you for being my faithful boyfriend. She smirked and then said, "Now I'm really going to make love to you." Yeah, the sex after that was great. The sex and other fun continued for the rest of the evening while she thanked me in the most personal way possible for keeping my vows. It was a wonderful memory. Unfortunately, her night of revenge was coming. Sue me. I didn't like it. Danielle looked at me and repeated, "Like you at your brother's bachelor party, I'll be on my best behavior." As dinner progressed, I smiled at her a little uncertainly. Danielle read my mood again and repeated for an unknown number of times, "Tom, I will be a good girl like you were a good boy. I promise." I nodded, realizing she meant what she said, but knew that bachelorette parties often involve two things that are bad separately, but often become a disaster when combined: alcohol and VIP dance club lounges at bachelor and bachelorette parties. Danielle smiled at me as I gave her my best fake smile. She looked me in the eye. "Tom, I promise. Good girl." I nodded. She sighed, then looked into my eyes and paused. She changed the subject and asked me, "Want a steak?" I shook my head and she looked at me. There was a pause again. She nodded and then said, "I'll be back pretty late, probably around 1 o'clock in the morning. Excuse me, my sister wants to make a late night of it." Yes, I was feeling pretty bad, and despite my best efforts, I was terrible at hiding it. She said after a short pause, "Hey, I left my cell phone in the car. I'm only wearing a robe and it's cold in the garage. Could you get it for me?" I nodded, then headed into the garage and walked over to her car to look for her cell phone, but couldn't find it. I looked all over her car but couldn't find anything. She went upstairs, and 2 minutes later came back downstairs holding her stomach. "Did you put onions on the steak? I don't feel so good." I assured her that after 3 years of marriage, I knew she was allergic to onions and would never do that to the woman I loved. She nodded, then her eyes got big and she ran up the stairs, into the bathroom and slammed the door. I followed her but found the door locked. Strange. I wanted to help her, but she locked herself in. I knocked. "Danielle, are you okay?" I heard gagging noises. I knocked. "Danielle, please let me help you." I heard more gagging noises. I was about to grab the pressure key to unlock the door when she came to the door and unlocked it, then opened it. Her eyes and nose were red and she looked terrible. She said, "Take me to our room. Something I ate is killing me." I picked her up, carried her, and sat her on the edge of the bed. She asked for her cell phone, and I said I couldn't find it in her car. After looking around, she found it on the stand by the bed and called her sister. "Brittany, something I ate is killing me. I just threw up from dinner. I won't be able to make it to the party." It sounded like an argument, but Danielle ended it by saying, "I can't be there. Have fun without me." She grabbed her stomach and groaned slightly. She ended the conversation, took off her robe, and lay down. I covered her up. She looked at me and said, "Nothing funny, but hold me. I need comfort, and that goes for you." I undressed and lay down in bed and pulled her against me, wrapping my arms around her naked body. She placed my hand on her breast but cautioned me against caressing her. She only wanted my embrace. Soon she was asleep in my arms. Yes, I hated the beginning of the evening, thinking about her being in the VIP room, but I loved holding her in my arms. No sex, but I enjoyed snuggling against her soft, warm breasts. A win is a win, and a hand on her chest is a win. Saturday. I woke up the next morning to Danielle snuggling up to me, rubbing her cheek against my chest and hugging my sides. "Good morning, sweetie." She kissed my cheek, then rubbed her cheek against my chest and rumbled happily. I hugged her back. "Good morning." She looked 100% better than last night. The last time she ate something she didn't like, It took her almost a day to get back to full strength. It was odd, and I frowned slightly, wondering. She shuddered. She read me like a book and knew I thought something was wrong. I knew her. I looked at her and asked, "Danielle?" She looked at me a little sideways, another of her signs when she's avoiding something. "Yes?" I asked. "What's going on? Were you really sick last night?" she asked with another strange look on her face. "What makes you think that?" That wasn't an answer to my question. Nice evasion without actually lying. I said. "Your cell phone wasn't in your car and you only left it on your nightstand. Strange that you didn't know where it was. Besides, it usually takes longer to feel better when you eat something you don't like." She sighed, clearly contemplating what to say, and after a moment she admitted, "I faked it. I felt fine." I thought for a moment, then asked, "And your swollen nose and eyes?" She sighed and replied, "When you were in my car looking for my phone." I reached into the spice cabinet and pulled out of my pocket a shaker of onion powder that you use when you cook something for yourself. I put some onion powder under my nose. I asked, "Did you do that for me?" She hugged me, very naked and very stunning. "I did it for us. I couldn't bear to see the night hurt you. I love you, you big insecure idiot. I know it's a lot easier for women to get into a relationship. Well, as long as there's no financial reward involved, but I don't see you doing that. The fact that you didn't want a second one on steak night means you were pretty upset." She sighed and added, "Also, Brittany's braggadocio made me nervous when she said she was going to get her sissy sweetheart drunk for the VIP lounge. I don't want to jeopardize my marriage." I looked at her and said, "You could have just told me." She sighed and lowered her eyes. It was awkward. I shook my head and said, "Embarrassing? I'm your husband." She shrugged. I was encouraged to go to the party, and then I felt awkward about wanting to say no. I was about to reply when she said firmly, "Don't tell me how I feel, okay?" She sighed and lowered her eyes again. "Besides, yeah." I waited while she carefully chose her words. She sighed again. "I don't know." Suddenly I had a terrible feeling of leaving. No particular reason for it. I just had a horrible feeling that I needed to be anywhere but at the party. I opened my arms and she hugged me tightly again. I kissed the top of her head. "I love you. Till death do us part." She squirmed and relaxed in my arms and then said, "I'm not in the mood for sex, but hold me." She rolled over, facing sideways, and I pressed myself against her, wrapping my arms around her body. I kissed her neck and said, "I love you, Danielle." She pressed herself against me, rocking her body, and I wrapped my arms around her when she said, "And I love you, Tom." After a nice hug, we dozed off into the morning, resting with my fiancé in my arms, the best privilege of my life. 4 hours later, her mom called her. Danielle listened, and her expression changed from a slight smile to stunned. After a minute, she put the phone down and announced in a shaky voice that the wedding was off. Danielle looked at her phone to read the messages and began to cry. It took me 10 minutes to calm her down, only to find out that things had gone wrong in the VIP room and several women were involved. Several marriages seemed to have ended in divorce, and several others were hanging by a thread. Most of them did things that wouldn't pass the wife test. Some only danced without clothes with the dancers and enjoyed themselves. Some, including the bride, had full-on sex. She wanted more hugs as she lamented the loss of her sister's future marriage. "I know you want your sister to be burned alive or sold to a Mexican brothel, but that didn't happen. My wife mourned the loss her sister suffered, albeit through her own fault." That night, the embrace turned to sex. Danielle was grateful for my support and was well aware that I wanted to make love to her all day, but I held back while she dealt with her feelings. Supporting my wife is job number one, and I'm not ashamed to say that being there for her was my privilege. Life was back to normal in many ways until 3 months later, Danielle informed me that she was having our first child, a girl we named Cassie. A year and a half after that, we had our second, a boy we named Justin. My thoughts came back to the present when my daughter walked in, kissed me on the cheek, and said, "Hi, Daddy. Jack's parking the car. Ready for the 30th anniversary dinner?" I nodded. My son and his wife were meeting us at Carlson's Steakhouse. Steak for dinner? Yes, please. Steak paid for by my wonderful children. Yes, please. Jack walked in and shook my hand. "It would be an honor to take you two to dinner, sir." I sighed. "Jack, call me anything but sir. It makes me feel older than I really am." I liked my brother-in-law, but he was so formal in his respect. Don't get me wrong. I like that he is a hard-working man who gives me respect, but this formality... I smiled and told him, "Just call me Tom." He looked at me and said, "Okay, Tom." My wife stood behind my daughter, and I stood up and patted my pocket, pretending to make sure my keys were in place. The ring box was in place. Inside was a beautiful anniversary ring. My wife looked at me. There was no way in the world I could fool her, as she knew me too well. She looked at my pocket and smiled. She knew. She kissed my cheek. "I love you, Tom." The end. Subscribe to my channel. Thank you.